What if the wildest man in rock was also the loneliest? Keith Moon, the legendary drummer of The Who, is remembered for explosions, hotel wrecks, and chaos that made rock history. But behind the thunder of his drums and the madness of his smile was a man quietly falling apart. This is not the Keith Moon you think you know. Forget the headlines, the smashed TVs, the Rolls Royce in the swimming pool. This is the story of the other Keith Moon, the comedian who hid his sadness behind laughter, the musical genius who played like a composer, and the loyal friend who would do anything to keep his bandmates close. He lived fast, burned bright, and tried to find redemption before it was too late. Every crash of his drum was a cry for connection, every joke a mask against silence. In this video, we're going to uncover 5 hidden sides of Keith Moon, the tragic, the brilliant, and the deeply human story of a man who gave everything to rock and lost himself in the noise. The tragic comedian behind the chaos. Keith Moon was often seen as the wildest drummer in rock history, a man whose hotel room demolitions and outrageous antics defined The Who's chaotic image. But behind that curtain of laughter and madness was someone painfully aware of his own loneliness. Moon's humor wasn't just entertainment, it was armor. He used comedy to deflect vulnerability and depression, often mimicking voices or staging absurd stunts to keep people laughing. Friends later admitted that when the laughter stopped, Moon's mood would collapse into melancholy. His relentless need to entertain stemmed from a fear of being forgotten or unloved. He once confessed that silence made him uneasy. It reminded him of his childhood isolation. The clown was a character he built to fill the space where inner peace should have been. This duality made Moon both magnetic and tragic, a man who could make an entire room laugh while quietly drowning in his own emptiness. A drummer who thought like a composer. While many saw Keith Moon as a drummer of pure instinct, his approach to music was surprisingly conceptual. He didn't see drums as a rhythm section instrument, but as part of the storytelling. He played melodically, not metronomically. His fills would rise and fall like emotional tides, echoing the drama of Pete Townshend's lyrics. In songs like Baba O'Reilly or Won't Get Fooled Again, Moon doesn't just keep time, he narrates chaos. His playing blurred the boundary between rhythm and lead, transforming percussion into poetry. Moon once said he, quote, played to the song's emotion, not its count. This mindset turned The Who's music into something symphonic. Despite his reputation for wildness, Moon's style wasn't accidental. It was deliberate rebellion against traditional drumming. His artistry lay not in control but in surrender, proving that genius can emerge from disorder. Deep loyalty hidden in madness. Keith Moon's friendships were intense, unpredictable, and filled with contradictions. Beneath the chaos, he was deeply loyal to those he loved. When his friends were in trouble, he'd go to extraordinary lengths to help, often impulsively and dramatically. Once, he bought a stranger's car just to cheer up a roadie. He could be destructive one moment and astonishingly kind the next. His bandmates often found his affection overwhelming. Moon needed to belong. He treated The Who as his family, even as his behavior tested their patience. When he sensed disapproval or distance, he'd panic, pushing harder for attention. His loyalty wasn't calm, it was desperate, rooted in fear of abandonment. That's why, despite his antics, those close to him rarely stopped caring. They saw the vulnerable boy trapped behind the explosions. Moon's heart was as loud as his drums, beating erratically but always with love. His complex relationship with fame. Keith Moon wanted fame but couldn't handle it. Stardom amplified everything unstable in his personality. The constant pressure to be Keith Moon the Madman left no room for the real person beneath. He began performing even off stage, turning dinner parties into chaotic performances just to meet expectations. Yet fame terrified him. It trapped him in a caricature he couldn't escape. His escalating drug and alcohol use wasn't only indulgence, it was anesthesia for the anxiety of living up to his legend. Moon once admitted he didn't know who he was without the madness. The tragedy was that his most adored persona was also his most self-destructive. He became addicted not only to substances, but to attention. Fame gave him immortality and isolation in equal measure. His story reveals the dark paradox of rock stardom. The applause that gives life can also consume it. A man searching for redemption. In his final years, Keith Moon quietly tried to change. Tired of chaos and guilt over hurting loved ones, he began attending therapy and even sought help to curb his drinking. Friends recall him talking about wanting to start over, to be taken seriously as a musician and father. He was preparing for a comeback, less madness, more music. Sadly, the weight of his past and the toll on his body made that redemption impossible. His accidental overdose in 1978 came just as he seemed ready to turn the page. Still, in that fragile final chapter, he showed something few associate with him: humility. Moon wasn't just the eternal prankster, he was a man reaching for peace in a life defined by noise. His brief attempts at redemption remind us that even the wildest souls long for calm before the end.